you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial *175 *94 hash to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Dial *175 hash and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles, valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning to you all that have chosen to wake up with us here on Good Morning Uganda. Now, of course, it is Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. Now, we do tell you that today being Thursday, it's another beautiful day, and not necessarily because it's just Thursday, it's because the weekend is coming to an end. Guess what? We're also fast tracking towards the 24th, where we shall have the nightlife back to life. I don't know if that statement is correct, but at night, everything is correct. Apparently, after the opaque bottle has surfaced, people find joy in everything they say. If you ever had a good conversation with someone who has been opaqued by the bottle, you realize their tongue doesn't lift very well. Their gait is staggery, and probably that's what the president used to mean when he said you're opening in a staggery manner. And of course, most recent through the lockdown, we have learned from His Excellency that the people who enjoy the opaque bottle are a danger to themselves. And maybe that's the reason why you see so many things happen at night, and they were going to have many sayings related to night time or nightlife. But nevertheless, we're almost there. Yesterday, the PS of Ministry of Health, that is Dr. Twine, did meet Diana. Twine did meet a couple of people from that industry, probably as they try to prepare on how they'll be reopening. If you pass very many bars, you realize that they are dusting the tables, the shelves, new stock and what. And of course, all artists are up and running, trying to book themselves spaces where they will start having their concerts. But of course, also, on top of all that, today I'm told by my fellow, just next to me here, she has consistently refused to back off Valentine's. And today she comes in a much more vivid look with Valentine's. Good morning, Philo.
Good morning, Felix. I intend to keep reminding every Ugandan that Valentine's is around the corner, so I need you to make the right preparations. We cannot take any excuses this year.
You don't know.
I really cannot take any excuses whatsoever, because everybody will always come up with a lame excuse saying, I never knew this, so I have taken it upon myself to make sure I remind each and every Ugandan.
Okay.
And Felix, you did talk about the countdown to the 24th.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I saw actually Uncle Bob getting excited,
yes,
which actually took me to what most Ugandans are anticipating. I want to tell you for sure that right now, if you want to throw Ugandans into a frenzy, tell them the date has been scheduled.
And it's also anticipated. Because
so I think what Uncle Bob was doing clearly represents what almost all Ugandans have right now. The preparations are actually taking on serious action, and they're on a serious course. So really, the prayer is that nothing changes between now and then.
Well, as you do make that prayer, I know my brother Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono is the lead in that prayer, and I would want at this moment to say good morning, Robert.
Well, you guys have just developed goose pimples because you mentioned that date. I just felt immediately my entire body, because I know some of us who are lovers of nightlife, more of humans but nocturnals in one way or the other. Nightlife is something we enjoy so much, and we're very excited that nightlife is going to open. Actually, economically, nightlife contributes so much to this economy. That is a matter of fact. So there's so much money that we've lost because nightlife has not been going on very well. If we look at even the rankings in terms of alcohol consumption, Ugandans, we are ranked about number 3 in the world. In Africa, we are there. So there's so much.
We have even lost our place now. We are probably in the 100s because
this has an economic connection to it, because these are not free drinks. You have huge companies that can't pay a lot of tax because this is the area where really they get a lot of their money. So we are excited that nightlife will be opened, and of course the entire economy now will be fully reopened for people to begin enjoying their source of income.
Well, of course, as the enjoyment goes on, we also do remind all the people who are up in gear waiting for the nightlife, it would be very good if you nightlize yourself after having been vaccinated. Clear, the call for vaccination is still going on, and it's at this point that I want to bring in Mollen and also to find out, Mollen, what do you anticipate, where do you anticipate to be on the 24th or 25th? Are you already having plans, or you're still working out or checking out the places?
I don't even know where to start. Because guess what? There are a lot
You'll be
of
hawking
plans
around.
Yeah, so I do have friends who actually want to start the anticipation earlier. So before the 24th, they have to be somewhere.
Wow.
So when it clocks like this, they're just going to go around at it until the next day. So I don't know whether that's the group I want to join. I'm still, contemplating. But I'm telling you, we're excited for the 24th. But you also look around and see how businesses have been stuck, the bars and musicians trying, to book spaces. I think it's going to be that week when you're all looking forward to what is the next thing, what is the big thing happening in the city. So if you are that person who likes to go out and, have been wanting all these parties and whatever, I know that everyone is prepared for this. Now, I'm only speaking for myself, but I know there are other Ugandans who are looking forward to that.
I will.
And guess what? We were talking about the fact that I'm telling you, even if it's a Monday, and guess what? You guys are even talking about the fact that it could be postponed, but I don't think that is going to happen. I am praying that it doesn't, Mr. President.
You know that song.
If you're if you're watching right now, please, we are begging you.
Well, it's as you beg the president, beg people to get vaccinated, because that's what definitely will determine how this will go on. Because if they can open for 1 week and close for...
Isn't that what we have been doing?
Absolutely, yeah.
We've told people to vaccinate all this time.
Just it's a requirement for you to enter these places. The whole Uganda will be vaccinated.
And also, on top of that, I was asking, earlier on, that song of Azawi called Pate Mood. You should listen to that song. It's a very nice song. It's off our new album, and probably later on I'll share that song with you. It is one of those songs that everyone wants.
I've done a challenge with that song, Felix, on TikTok. So
perfectly.
I know that song.
But anyway, today being also Throwback Thursday, I am told by Philo here. Throwback Thursday, we do bring back memories. I also saw one of the adverts of Afrigo Band. They will be somewhere doing a chicken day. You can imagine. I can't wait for that. I can't wait. But anyway, so much is happening again ahead of the reopening. Of course, we're still having challenges with fuel prices. We anticipated that probably by end of week, some of the trucks will be let off the borders and already in town. Yes. We hope that's happening. And of course, our neighboring country, that is Kenya, they are up in gear. They'll have elections probably in the next 4 or 5 months. And of course, that alone is causing a bit of tension there. We anticipate and pray that government will take in consideration to have its reserves probably filled this time round in case of any challenges with. But of course, also we have had the traders coming out consistently to complain about the issue of taxes. Now, yesterday, just a day ago, just the day before yesterday, we had the Kasita coming out in a press conference, again talking about these issues of taxes, the 1 kilo method approach of taxation, the issues of the Uganda Development Bank, and the kind of, all these things are simply entangled, and of course there are complaints. But on top of all those, we also want to give you what's been headlines in our news here at, of course, UBC. But of course, later on, we will take you through our normal programming. That is, we'll have our newsreel. Later on, weather, nature. Of course, we shall be having taking you onto the roads. Where is the best route for you easier? Knowing that fuel prices are high, you must avoid traffic. And of course, as Uncle Bob said earlier, carry yourself a kadomala. If you don't have the confidence to have your full tank or mid tank or quarter tank, just in case things don't happen well. But right now, let's take you through headline news, the stories that did happen last night. And of course, that's locally. And we're also looking at the international stories thereafter.
It off with the appointment of an acting Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, where Honorable Muruli Mukasa was yesterday appointed by His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni appointed Muruli Mukasa as the acting Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, in addition to his role as Minister of Public Service. This was confirmed in a letter dated 13th January 2022. Honorable Muruli Mukasa has been a Cabinet Minister of Public Service in the Cabinet of Uganda since the 6th of June 2016. He has previously served as Cabinet Minister for Gender and Social Issues from March 1st, 2015 until 6th of June 2016. Muruli Mukasa served as Minister for Kampala before substantively Minister was appointed in 2011. And in 2014, when the line Minister Frank Tumwebaze took leave of absence, previously he served as Minister of Security from 27th May 2021 until 1st of March 2015. Muruli Mukasa also served as Member of Parliament for Budio Pe County in Nakasongola District. He was appointed Minister of Security in May 2011, replacing Amama Mbabazi, who had become Prime Minister then. In a cabinet reshuffle in 2015, he was transferred to the post of Minister of Gender and Social Issues, replacing Mary Karor Okrut. On June 6, 2016, he was named Cabinet Minister for Public Service in Cabinet. Honorable Muruli Mukasa was born in Nakasongola District on the 5th of July 1952, where he attained local elementary and secondary school. He studied at Makerere University, where he earned a combined degree/diploma of Bachelor's of Arts with a diploma in education in 1975. In 1987, he earned a certificate in hotel management from undisclosed institution in Tripoli, Libya. For 11 years, from 1975 till 1986, Muruli Mukasa was a teacher for the last 2 years. He was a principal of school where he taught since 1989. Muruli Mukasa will be a successor of Honorable Ephraim Kamuntu as the Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister, who has been in office for 4 years since he was appointed in this position on the 14th of December 2019.
Well, still on Parliament, we look at members of the Lango Parliamentary Group in northern Uganda have expressed disappointment over delayed works on Lira Kamdin Road, whose state they say is appealing. Now, addressing journalists at Parliament, the legislators threatened to mobilize Lango residents for a peaceful demonstration over the road they say is now a death trap. However, Prime Minister Robin Anabanja has affirmed government commitment towards this cause, directing the contractor to expedite the completion of the pending procedures for works to begin.
And away from Parliament, we now look at the fuel crisis in the country. Uganda has the capacity to store fuel that can sustain traffic for 10 days, but the current shortage of fuel doesn't call for activation of these reservoirs. The situation is expected to normalize since truck drivers are being cleared at the Uganda-Kenya border. Prime Minister Honorable Robin Anabanja said that it is no longer necessary to sell fuel above 5,000 Uganda shillings as reported by gas stations. The economic forces of demand and supply are at play.
Oh, look at the EC budget, where the Electoral Commission chairperson Simon Mugenyi Byabakama has decried inadequate funding by government towards LC1, 2 and 2 elections come next year, 2023. Now, the Electoral Commission presented a budget of 90 billion, but government has committed 36 billion shillings that has left a funding gap of about 56 billions. Now, the Electoral Commission chairperson defended the budget and tasked Parliamentary Committee on Legal Affairs to support him and avail to avoid previous mistakes where LC1 chairpersons held offices illegally for 16 years without holding election.
Still on issues of budget and budget allocation, the Ministry of Education and Sport has a funding gap of 481.57 billion in its current fight to respond to the COVID-19 recovery. This is contained in the budget framework paper, which the Education and Sports Ministry also seeks for more 157 billion to support COVID-19 recovery strategies in the next financial year. A sum to the tune of 3.84 trillion shillings has been presented by the Ministry of Education and Sports in the ongoing budget framework stages in Parliament. The members of Parliament sitting on the Education Committee questioned the utilization of the current financial year funds, reflecting on the COVID-19 pandemic, urging that learners were home.
Now, in other stories, we look at the UK Africa Minister, that is the United Kingdom Minister for Africa, Vicky Ford, has joined the wider advocacy for pregnant girls to be allowed to resume classes in Uganda and Africa at large for them to rewrite their future. Now, Ford, who is in the country for the very first time since her deployment last December as Minister for Africa, has on Wednesday commissioned the construction of 3-storied multi-purpose building at Onwards and Upwards SS Buloba in Wakiso district.
We now head to issues regarding security and elimination of the ADF from the Republic of Congo. The joint operation of Uganda People's Defense Forces, UPDF, and Congolese National Army FRADC has been affected by poor roads as supplies and other equipment hardly enter into DRC. UNRWA, together with UPDF, have constructed a ferry on River Semulik that will facilitate transportation of UPDF personnel and logistics, as well as people across borders to smoothly transact business.
Stories, and looking at our first story, that is from the UK. Now, Johnson fights for his premiership after MP's defect to Labour Party. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is fighting to save his premiership after a member of his party defected over accusation he and his staff defied lockdown rules, and as an internal conservative rebellion reportedly gathered pace. Now, Christine Wakefield, who represents the Barry South constituency in Northern Ireland, switched allegiances to join the main opposition Labour Party on Wednesday. Of course, now he crossed the lower chambers House of Commons to take a seat of the Labour bench, a symbolic departure made during the weekly Prime Minister's questions session. Now, I can no longer support a government that has shown itself inconsistently out of touch with the hard-working people of Barry South and the country as a whole, he said in a statement. Now, still about international news, is racism why South African evidence of milder infection was ignored? Questions come up as South Africa scientists are praised internationally for fast detecting the Omicron variant, have accused Western nations of ignoring early evidence that the new COVID variant was dramatically milder than those which drove previous waves of the pandemic. Now, two of the South African most prominent coronavirus experts told the BBC that Western skepticism about their work could be construed as racist, or at least a refusal to believe the science the science because it came from Africa. Now, it seems like high-income countries are much more able to absorb bad news that comes from countries like South Africa, said Professor Shaba Mandi, a vaccine expert that at Johannesburg University of the Witwatersrand, when they were providing good news, all of a sudden there is a whole lot of skepticism. It would call for it to be looked at racism. Now back to Africa. 10 DR Congo prisoners sentenced to mass rapes in jail. Now, of course, 10 prisoners have been found guilty of raping dozens of female inmates during a violent riot at an overcrowded jail in Democratic Republic of Congo. 37 women and a teenage girl testified that they were repeatedly raped during the 3-day riot at that is Kasapa Central Prison near Lubumbashi. In 2020, some female detainees became pregnant and contracted sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. Now, 10 men were fined and ordered to serve 15 additional years in jail, although some of the inmates were too frightened to give evidence. Dozens testified before a military prosecutor that they had been raped during the riot. Maleni Mumba, a lawyer for the victims, told AFP News Agency, "We are satisfied with the verdict after a long struggle to gain justice."
Now, a volcano-triggered tsunami underscores island's acute climate risk. Now, from the Pacific island nation of Tonga, the tsunami unleashed by Saturday volcanic eruption laid bare some of the ways that climate change is threatening the island's very existence. Now, by increasing temperatures and driving up sea levels, climate change will likely worsen disasters, that is, tsunamis, storm surges, heat waves, as experts say. Now, acutely aware of the risk, Tonga has been a key voice representing climate vulnerable nations, saying that at the UN climate talks in November last year, global warming beyond the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold would spell the absolute catastrophe for Tonga and other Pacific islands as they are subsumed by the sea. Their plea for the global climate action is especially desperate given that Pacific Island nations account for only 0.3% of global carbon emissions, according to World Bank. Now, while we're resistant and trying to adapt, it only takes a few extra meters of water to cover a house to kill a child family, said Shalma Ali, who is the CEO of the international charity Save the Children. In the neighboring Fiji, Tonga reported that the waves of up to 15 meters crashed ashore and of the outer island after the Saturday's volcanic eruption, flattening homes and killing at least 3 people. The eruption triggered tsunamis, warnings across the Pacific.
Some of the stories that we have for you, and of course from our local scene, and definitely looking at international stories now. Uncle Robert, aka Uncle Bob, does hold tight onto a bottle of Hallelujah ginger tea and Hallelujah tamarind.
Felix, every morning we come to you, and my simple reminder is you need to boost your immune system. And one of the ways of doing this is taking these products from Hallelujah Reflexology. That is Hallelujah Tamarind Drink and Hallelujah Ginger Tea. They have what you can hardly come by and combine it together. Yes, people make concoctions, but this is a perfect one because it has also been certified by the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. So just 1,500. Move into any shop and get yourself this bottle. Also, kids are going to school. You can pack one for them because this will help them fight off flus, coughs, and the likely of such sicknesses.
Well, of course, also we would want to look at a poll question, and that is Philo will take us through what a poll question is.
Well, this morning we want to know how you think or what you think can be done, or how can government work with the business community to moderate the heavy taxes ahead of reopening of the economy. We've had very many business people operating different business entities complaining of these high taxes, especially now that COVID-19 kicked in. There were a lot of hardships that were faced by several businesses in different capacities. So we really want to know how you think government government can come through and make sure they, moderate the heavy taxes ahead of the reopening of the economy. You can send us your feedback on our Twitter, and don't forget the hashtag is UBCGMU. We also have a WhatsApp platform available. The number is actually 0709 602592. We'll be getting into the feedback shortly.
Well, of course, today being Thursday, as Philo said, we'll be giving you a all-time classic, and that will be by Billy Ocean's What is the Color of Love? Definitely, I want someone to answer that when we come back, and definitely that will be Mollen. And probably later on, Philo will tell us, since she's the Valentine ambassador. But for now, let's take a break, have our song for the day, enjoy this song, and of course, do define love in your own way. We'll be back here with our newsreel.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Raising voices.
As a community member, I think we need to change the way we act in response to violence against children. In my small way, I can be a leader in preventing violence in my community. I promise to work with my neighbor to create violence-free homes and communities for our children.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising voices.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by was brought to you by
Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Pay school fees conveniently using MTN Momo. Dial *165 *80#. Enter the student code provided by the school. It will show you the student name and the class plus outstanding balance. Enter the amount you want to pay. Enter PIN. You will get a notification confirming payment. It's simple, secure, and convenient.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
A lovely morning once again, and thank you for being part of us here on Good Morning Uganda UBC TV. Just a reminder that always make it a date to start your morning with us because we address issues of national concern. Today we want to look at a very pertinent issue that was yesterday before the Budget Parliamentary Committee to ascertain the funds required to ensure that when it comes to the term of expiring of these very leaders, we have enough funds. That is assessing the performances of local councils. Yesterday, we saw the Electoral Commission before the Budgetary Committee of Parliament, and what had taken them there is to ensure that they have enough funds to prepare, that is for the LC elections come 2023 when their term will be expiring. Just to remind you, we once had 16 years of not knowing the fate of local councils because at one point retired Major Ruhanga went to court and said, well, these are illegitimate because when you look at what is required, they don't qualify. It took government some good years to organize these elections, of which their term will be expiring. Now the Electoral Commission is seeking 90 billion to ensure that they have these elections, but government is only willing and is willing to give them 36 billion to organize these elections, leaving a deficit of about 56 billion needed by Electoral Commission. When we last had these elections, it costed the Electoral Commission to organize them with a budget of about 20 billion. This brings us to ask ourselves, how relevant are these elections and, of course, the people that are elected? We know we have over 70,000 villages in Uganda, and each of these has an LC, as according to our laws, because it's a constitutional office. And many of us, I believe, one time you've had to look for your LC office for various purposes, in terms of law and order, but also accreditation of some key documents where their signatory is very important. And I'll start with Felix. Felix, when we had these elections, it was something that we saw Ugandans crave for, and I think it was my first time to see elections of such a lower office people investing a lot of money. The campaigns were very unique. Posters, banners. There's a lot of excitement.
Kirabo, don't be shy to say we invested a lot of money. Include yourself.
So it was very shocking how competitive this election was this time, though it was by lining up. But you'd see the zeal, the determination. People participated with a lot of effort and desire. And one would think, was this justifying the relevancy of this office? I don't know if you know who your chairman, LC1, is.
Born of course, my jurisdiction in Rubaga, Sigula. I know. Yes, I know they're even in Lule.
They've just forgotten the name.
Yes, I know him. I even know where the office is. You want to see Naku Mbugo? That's where the offices are.
But you can't recall the name.
No, but it's not important to know the name. But I know him and I know the place. Yeah. But previously, the one who spent all those years, I think, unfortunately,
there were 16 years without.
Yeah, he passed away, and it was sad. But nevertheless, coming back to your point, trying to cause true analysis or trying to analyze the relevance of these elections. The local council elections have been precedented in this country, and I think it's a system that was it's a brainchild of the NRM in particular, and I think it springs from the earlier organization of the RCs, you know, that has come and evolved. Now, the intention of government, if you want to speak into the earlier purpose, was basically to have what we call decentralization of power for easy administration, actually to decentralize administration in terms of service delivery. But majorly by then, the issue greatly was basically about security because of the times. It, of course, as I said, it has come evolving because of, one, what used to be insecurity is no longer a big issue lately. Secondly, of course, it is a bit minor with minor criminality and what. But now, over time, it has become what we call local council administration, LC. And if I was in charge of some of these local government, I would even call it LCA, local council administration, because everything that is done by these local councils is administrative, if you've noticed. That's why for some of the accreditations you need in a country like Uganda, you have to have reference of the local council. Now that explains why you're asking that people are investing heftily. That is the reason that this office has gained power. And let me tell you, and there's a conflict that for me I want to bring out, that over time you have noticed that the office of the LC and their entire cabinet, or you want to call it cabinet or administration or committee, call it whatever you want. Some people call it their minister, whatever, some secretary, this and this. That administration is more relevant than some council administrations. And it is debatable. It is debatable. I'll tell you how many times do you, and probably my sister Mollen will tell us, how many times does she need to have interaction with maybe the women representative at council level vis-a-vis the woman representative at LC level? You get it? And this is where we want to have the discussion when the Honorable Chairman of the EC goes to meet members of Parliament. They may be shy to bring such issues because later on they will work backward towards them. But aren't we suffering from multiple political positions, unnecessary multiple positions in this country? You have, let's say in terms of townships, you have LC5 and there's a whole cluster of administrative offices there, or political offices you may want to call them. Then you come at division level, then you come down. You find that the cost of political administration, and that is the actual problem, not necessarily the cost of political administration versus the cost of service delivery. That's where the problem should be. Now, if you want to give 90 billion shillings, or if you want 90 billion shillings to carry out an LC election, the question is, what is the socio-economic effect of the LC in that community? Do we have a direct relationship between the existence of LCs and socio-economic development? That is key. But later on, as I've told you, what the LCs are doing, there are other offices which probably should be doing the same work. So this duplication of work, again, means that we are spending money, yet no one should be. No one is getting the benefit of it. As I've told you, for example, you have councillors. Let's look at, as I've given you an example, you have a councillor. What is the role of a councillor vis-a-vis what LCs do? The chairman of, let's say, of a particular village has a right to do most of the things that probably, apart from sitting in the council, meeting.
Yes. Let me bring in Mollen here. This is a constitutional office, and in our regulations, its functions are well stipulated. But let's look at some of these and you analyze if really we evaluate these people have been able to carry out these functions. One, according to Article 50 of the Local Government Act 1997, the committee, which is headed by the village LC1 chairperson, will determine policies and decisions made by the council to ensure they're executed. Then the Act also provides that the village executive committee will assist in maintenance of law and order and security, as they participate in self-help projects and mobilize people, that is, to follow and enjoy government projects. There's also the executive is also expected to vet and recommend persons into the Uganda People's Defense Forces and Uganda Police. It's further expected to serve as the communication channel, all higher local council and the people in the area. Then finally, among other functions, the executive, according to the Act, will carry on other projects as designed or directed by government through the local government organizations in the area. So it has security, it has law and order, and fostering government programs and communication. It is a channel.
Yeah. Well, Robert, it's good that you've actually stated some of those things that we know the LC was actually, created to do stuff like that. But you also look at the effectiveness of themselves on these duties. Because, and I want to agree with Felix here, some of these roles are duplicated within, administration of government. You find that at this level, actually, you have the LC chairperson, then there is also a Naba Chala, then there is, one thing that can be done by one office is just duplicated. Then you have their vice. All that committee is really unnecessary.
Because you have, that is the chairman, the vice chairman, then you have secretary for women affairs, we have the secretary for environment and education, we have a representative of the youth there. So it's a committee of about 9 people.
So you look at the fact that all this is just unnecessary, but we also have to remember that it is key that we have LC, and when we talk about the decentralization of governments, you cannot rule out the LC committee, because guess what, some of the government programs, like we mentioned, are mostly enforced through this kind of administration. And you look at right now what we're talking about, the parish model. This is something that has been created through such kind of angles to make sure that a government can actually get services to the grassroots. Because if you were to bring in a program like that, like the parish model, through the member of parliament or even through the LC5 at that level, it would never get to the grassroots. But involving LC1, LC2, it will help get to them, because these are the people on the ground. They know exactly where vulnerability is. I am telling you, there are people who come to LC1, LC2 offices for different reasons. But as the chairperson of the village, they will know exactly who is vulnerable and who is not, which is how effective some of these programs will work. Then you also look at the fact that right now in Uganda there are offices that will require you to have a signature from the LC before you acquire certain stuff. So they are still equally important. Now, my concern is on this money is I think we are also overreacting, because 90 billion, if you look at the 90 billion budget, really, it's not much, considering the fact that we are now post COVID-19, and there is going to have to be, it's not going to be the same like the last one we organized, because right now you look at the OPs, you look at the fact that there are already those gaps that have been there created due to COVID-19. I'll give you an example of what the Ministry of Education and Sports are asking right now for their budget. That is 2022-2023. They're asking for over 3.8 trillion shillings, for relief in education sector. We have already put in a lot of money in the education sector, and that is well needed. But look at the budget that EC is asking for, 90 billions, and we need this administration protocol in place. So I don't think that is much money, if you ask me.
Well, Felix, just to take you people back, we had these elections in July 2018, but we resolved to change the laws into lining up. And the main issue was here to cut on expenditure. To cut on expenditure. That is why our parliament, our representatives said no, we can vote through lining up. Also for issues of transparency. And that election then, the Electoral Commission had a budget of 20 billion. Today we are moving to 90 billion.
You see, Robert, and without fear of contradiction, when my sister Mollen says that there's nothing wrong with 90 billion, clearly she's not in sync with the realities of what has come of our economy lately. And that directly trickles into even one of the issues that we did ask our viewers and listeners, poll question. We don't spend because there's what to be spent.
Yes.
We spend because we have a target and we are working towards a bigger picture. For example, that's why in my question, and I asked Robert, that you must relate, all of these things, by the way, must be related back to the socio-economic development. That is the best evaluation you can give at a national level. That when you talk about LC elections, fine, you want 90 billion. How does this 90 billion turn into value? Can we have a discussion into that? Because, for example, when you talk about, and you see you don't talk about 90 billion in addition to what we have spent on these other elections, council, parliament, and presidential, that probably will go to how much in total? But the money we are putting into elections, how are we getting value for it?
Actually, just to respond to what you've asked, the Electoral Commission in total requires, that is 249 billion. Because they also have other petitions that are going on and other work. So that is their total budget that they brought before Parliament.
But let me tell you something. Yesterday there was a meeting, just briefly, by the medical practitioners in the National Referral Hospital. For the last 2 weeks, they have not received PPE. You understand? They have not received PPE. They have not, even masks are not available for medical practitioners. We have just gotten well with the issue of interns. I know these discussions, and that's why we have discussions like this, sometimes to throw light to issues of priority. Not that LCs are not priority, and I love the method, and that was a recommendation by the president, the that's lying behind, and it worked super.
You didn't have so much petitions, rigid, cheated.
Why do we go into spending 90 billion? As I've told you, every expenditure from a national consummate, we must relate it to socio-economic development. Once you get your head off that, and you're going to lose the point, because every activity must work back towards national growth. But when elections of LCs are very key. And by the way, if you asked me, if you put Parliament, Manya Council, and LCs, the first election I would support would be LCs.
Because the first administrative unit.
These guys, first of all, by they're talking about it, they don't have salaries. They promise them bicycles you have never seen.
LCs get money. They are in that government structure.
No,
you really think they did chewing all that money in the elections and they're not getting anything in that?
They are not earning anything.
What government gives the LC is 120,000 a year.
The things I'm telling you, I am not privy to that information.
And just as
so
a point,
there isn't any
as a
other
point of
money
view
that is
right
allocated
now,
to these people.
I want us to focus on service delivery. When Felix talks about the value of LCs and looking at what administratively is being the target with LC administration is service delivery. So we cannot question the value in making sure that we have these elections when we know that most of the programs by government have been hindered because of lack of effectiveness at these levels. So unless we really make sure that this is a clear process that has been funded, has been put in place, we are still going to have the similar issues.
Cost of what?
Take a look at some of the programs that have almost failed. The Emyoga Fund structure that was also meant to be really targeting the grassroots people. This was never effective because we lacked such structures then. And right now we do have new programs that are coming up, supposed to pass through the same channel. So if government is trying to help people get the services they need, and we don't invest in making sure that this process is clear, we are still going to lag behind as a country.
Maybe Felix,
when it comes to people receiving
just to throw
what they
in
actually
this, let's
need.
understand this from these two angles. Talking about money to organize an election is another thing, and talking about money given to the elected people to enable them carry on their work is a different thing.
Absolutely.
Because for me, I understand, yes, you can spend 90 billion if we had that as a country into these elections
and then
have these people in offices, but at the end of the year you're giving them 120,000. Some of them are renting offices.
But do they get that money?
Let me tell you, Robert, these people
proper means of transport, proper means of communication. So what should be the priority?
Robert,
is it
let me
empowering
tell
them to be able to deliver services, or having them in office?
But have you seen any protests coming out from the LCs? Are they complaining that, you know what, government is real? They are actually looking forward to this. They want the offices. If this has been a challenge to them, I'm sure they would be addressing it. But these offices, they are actually using these offices. And we know, let's not talk like we're not Ugandans. Do you know how much money that these LC people make?
How much do they make?
Out of, you know, the things that we want to consult with them.
To know.
Have you gone to an LC1 and you needed a letter for something? How much they will charge you for paper? And they're not complaining. I am telling you, an issue is not about how much government is paying these. If you bring it into reality, it's not how much government is paying them, but they are also benefiting from these offices. And this is also one way to make sure that they are delivering. Because unless they give you that signature that you want, you won't be able to attain what you also want to get.
We cannot sit here and try to normalize an abnormality.
That is very true.
In as much as it could be happening, we can't sit here and say that because these people are earning shoddily, and let me use that word, they're earning shoddily, or one would even extremely say illegally, because you've seen fights. That's why you have LCs selling people's land 3 times, 4 times. You've had these cases, you know. That's why, you know, every time you attach a payment to a signature, some people will not come who don't have the money. That means service is not going to be given where it is due. And we cannot support that. That's why we are saying, as you talk about the 90 billion, talk about remuneration.
Yes.
For example, where do LCs sit? We're having a discussion and saying, at least accommodate them maybe at the RC's, the representative for
RDC's offices.
Yes, or at the LC5. But where do they sit?
The complicity then.
People are holding meetings in bedrooms.
But Felix,
most of the chairpersons,
let me just say something small, because I want us to understand. If you look at your LC chairperson or LC1, LC2, and then your member of parliament, who do you think you would easily get help if it was a personal matter from? And look at, and in that I want you to look at the budget that goes into us getting member of parliament and LC. We are looking at this as if it's a small issue that is unnecessary. We get much more help from the LCs than we do get from the member of parliament, and yet that is where all the much money goes into making sure that we have these members in parliament. At the end of the day, me as a person, you know, normal Ugandan, much of the help that I get will be from these people that are close to me,
you know,
the LCs.
There's no doubt.
So I don't think that this is something that we should be concerned about and be like, this money is just unnecessary and called for.
No.
It is something that, and it's a small amount.
Point of
when you guys are complaining about the fact that we don't have this money, You're going to see budgets, sectors coming up with trillions of money.
Well, when we look at our budget framework paper, this is just information to know why you're seeing that most of, we've just come from COVID-19 and we're just going to full reopening. Our budget is about 43 trillion, according to, that is the budget framework paper for the next financial year. URA is expected to collect about, that is 20 trillion. But 34% of our national budget, Felix, is going into debt resurface, debt servicing. Servicing. So that means that you're only left with 5 trillion of what you're collecting domestically. That means every 10,000 shillings that government is going to collect, 3,400 is going into debt servicing. So we are looking at this at a time when we must prioritize, we must minimize expenditure on various projects for us to have value for money, and also, you know, you can only cut a coat according to your piece of cloth.
You see, Robert, and I appreciate that information that you did share in regards to how we are standing in terms of data, and of course how much we collect and how we are handling our budget. And something quite important, and by the way, as a matter of fact, when we talk about, we don't mean to be against the expense of 90 billion, because in terms of what is wasted, and that is my word.
But for me, it befits the purpose. Why we made an amendment? Because
absolutely, absolutely.
The purpose.
But if you, and I want to tell you, let me give an example. I hope no one takes offense in this. Imagine, Robert, you say you want to marry one beautiful Mollen, Kenyena here, and you want to spend about 100 million, okay, on people eating and feeding, but then you want to spend about just 150,000 on her gown. Would you allow that kind of nonsense, Mollen? Mollen would say to be the case. Because for her, the most important...
At that point, it's not a matter of love.
That's the thing. Yeah. Now, it's a discussion we're having. You say that let people have a nice buffet, what cost meal, the decor, but you're going to have a dress, a gown of 100,000. Would you allow?
No, that's
it's what we are saying. Why do you spend 90 billion to go through a process, a 1 day or 2 day process, and the people you're putting in office are toothless?
They don't even have paper to write.
But you see,
what it's
relative.
And what
you giving this kind of example is not related, really.
But that's the reality, Kenyena.
The
reality is, let's get this right. I'm one of the members of the LC of Committee of Mubarak March India.
No wonder Felix said you also spent a lot of money in this.
And I know what they go through, mostly in urban centers. We rent an office that is 200 every month.
That's cheap.
That is fairly cheap, because what we could accommodate, actually it's kind of like a kiosk. I hope KCCA does not take our LC1 office in this enforcement. I just pray and hope, please spare, because that is what we can afford.
Is it on the roadside?
You guys are gone.
One of these issues is the LC1 office must be within that area. That's why when you talked about them being at the RDC's office, you can't, because you're supposed to be within the area of demarcation, your community. We buy paper when people come. These letters you have to write on paper. We have someone, we pay electricity because of
the same paper you ask us to pay for.
We have a computer, we have some of these.
Must have someone to sit there the whole time.
We must have someone to sit there. At the end of the day, the members we are talking of, the many on the committee, each agreed has to contribute. Then when someone comes and buys land, because you don't have specific amount, if you bargain and you get that money, so you've saved some rent for some period of time.
That is wrong.
So, but this is not what should be done. At the end of the day, they will call you so and so is fighting, because we have the LC courts. So there are certain cases under the law that we handle. A time comes, you have to sit as the executive. You need water. You need something to partake of as you discuss. Handle these cases.
But he brings out a good point.
You need water for what?
You bring out a good point.
You can't sit for 3 hours. You know, then government has... Recently, we had the polio issue. We had to move with the people, because you know where the children are. Sensitization.
Even in times of COVID, I remember, yes.
Directing them where exactly to go. You get a megaphone, move around. Why is that? At no penny. This is why you find that some
and
of
that's why, Robert, I use the example of marriage, and I'll tell you why. That other people are going to go happy. But the bride is not happy, because she was putting on a gown against. That's the thing. Now you're going to go an election, through an election and spend all that money. But the people who are getting in office, they have no weapons to take them through. I think as we have the discussion of the budgets of elections, we need to think about some allowance for these LCs. And for me, as a matter of fact, Parliament spent how much money buying cars? Every member took about 200 and something, or 100 and something million. You can imagine over 500 members. So I think, as again, brings us back to priorities. No wonder, that's why some things will pass always when they go to Parliament. That money will be given there. Because they can't question. Because if you start, they can't question.
And
for them, everything is okay,
the
so they have no reason to question.
The committee that was supposed that was listening in to the EC chairperson actually also availed that they will be supporting him. He just needs to. There's no objection if you look into that
but no
discussion.
One talks about
they want to support. So I think we should also have another discussion of how are these LC, offices, supposed to be financially supported, because it's a whole different thing having the election, the budget. It could be something that we need, but also what happens after the aftermath of the elections is what we should also be rooting for. Have these offices funded.
Thank you so much, Felix and Mollen. Indeed, we need these offices, but we must also ensure that how do we empower them as they wait for the bicycle. If you remember, about a decade back, they were promised bicycles and all ended in court and arrest here and there. Those bicycles have never suffered. We still wait, but we don't know.
Up until now, they are walking on foot.
Well, let's just look at our poll question one more time for you to give in your views, your opinions regarding this, and when we return, we'll look at what is trending in the print media.
Of course, our poll question is: how can government work with the business community to moderate the heavy taxes ahead of the reopening of the economy? Be able to answer or share your opinions. That is on hashtag UBCGMU, that is for Twitter. And of course, for some of you, on our WhatsApp number 0709 60 25 92. Now you can also leave a message on our Facebook page, but also you can use the same number to leave an SMS message.
When we return, we'll be looking at what is trending in the print media this morning. Good morning.
Raising voices.
As a community member, I think we need to change in the way we act in response to violence against children. In my small way, I can be a leader in preventing violence in my community. I promise to work with my neighbor to create violence-free homes and communities for our children.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising voices.
Enjoy convenience today with Airtel Money School Pay, FlexiPay, or Bridge Schools. To pay school fees using FlexiPay, dial *185#. Select option 6 School Fees. Select option 3 FlexiPay. Enter the school code. Enter the student number. Enter the amount. Enter the PIN number to complete payment. Pay school fees conveniently using Airtel Money. Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
Raising voices.
I feel happy when my father spends time with me. I hope all fathers will like my father. I want my father to reach out to all fathers. He knows how important it is to be a good father. I promise to help my father inspire other fathers to change.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising voices.
You know, you could just buy a new smartphone from anywhere in Uganda. Dial *175*94# to activate their 100% double data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles for 3 months. Better yet, you automatically receive free 1 GB valid for 30 days. You are hooked already, aren't you? Enjoy 100% double data bonus from Airtel. Buy a smartphone from anywhere in Uganda and insert an Airtel SIM card. Dial star 175 star 94 hash to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles. Valid for 3 months. Dial star 175 hash and select your preferred bundle to activate a 100% data bonus offer on weekly or monthly bundles. Valid for 3 months. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Patriotism is a feeling of love, devotion, and the willingness to sacrifice for one's country.
I say no to corruption because I put my country first. I choose peace over violence because I put my country first.
I love Uganda. I serve Uganda. I sacrifice for Uganda. I'm loyal to Uganda. I love myself.
Be patriotic. Uganda first. This message is brought to you by the National Secretariat for Patriotism Co Uganda, Office of the President.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Very interesting discussions and of course light moments still to spice up your morning. Thank you for being with us on UBC TV, and just a reminder, we are here every weekday from 6:30 till the hour of 9, ensuring that you're well versed with what is happening. We shape the daily's conversation, so in order to be informed, make it a date with us every weekday. Right now, let's look at what is trending in the print media. I'm holding the New Vision this morning. NUP chief responds to allegations of fraud. Kyagulanyi speaks out on crisis. That is in the National Unity platform. Still, the New Vision brings you what is the way out as fuel crisis deepens. A question there, what is the way out as the crisis deepens? There are also over 90 opportunities for you inside in terms of tenders. Education, new curriculum, there is Senior 1 and Senior 2 English, Language and Chemistry. In terms of trade, coffee exports up by 28%. Some good news there. And what next for amputated officer, that is a police constable, whose right leg was amputated on Tuesday, will be treated. More there. We'll still look at the New Vision, where UK government donates to schools. The vision gives you more of that. And the numbers key for industrial take-off. But also some good news here, that is COVID cases drop by 46% in 2 weeks.
Well, of course, also Daily Monitor, very, very saddening story. Traffic police officer shot by soldier, pleaded for his life. It's quite sad, but of course COVID tests are now valid for 14 days, and travelers, a PCR test had 72 hours window. Earlier requirement was inconveniencing. New directive to ease business travels. Night economy reopens next week. Yeah. Cabinet directive, the decision to revert to the 2-week requirement for a negative PCR test. It comes after a statement of the Malaba board. And of course, more people can't read, says report. Definitely. And of course, they also come here to say suspended airline bosses asked to resign. Just fire them. Why do you ask them to resign? I mean, why do you ask them? Just fire them. Here is how to save fuel amid the crisis. Of course, this is very good. Don't get excited yet, weatherman tells farmer. Probably that is one of the stories that Mollen will give us more highlight into. Now, Donald Trump, as family business, misrepresented the value of some of his biggest assets. Now, snow falls in desert. And of course, the photo from the archives here, we see the President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and Lieutenant Tito Okello there during signing the ceremony of a peace treaty mediated by President Kenya Daniel Arap Moi. Now, also today in history, former Minister Kalema arrested and John Kennedy sworn in as U.S. President. That is in 1961.
In the New Vision, we begin with parenting. That is a column for parents there. My child is unfriendly and prefers playing alone. Well, what should I do? The experts answer. My relationship.
Is that a problem? Oh yeah, I think I would love a kid like that.
Well, when they grow up, you never know what they will become.
They will become nothing. It's just that's just who they
Sharing is part of life.
Not all
and
time.
socializing. Well, my relationship with my children feels strained. We look at the COVID-19 tracker, new confirmed cases 270, positivity rate 4.9, new deaths 17. Total death registered in this country so far stands at 3,449. We move into history. It was on this very date, the 20th of January, the year 2013, when UPDF killed Connie's chief bodyguard and Obama sworn in as US president on the same date, this very month, but the year 2009.
Now, of course, in sports, Uganda to finally face Ghana in under-20 World Cup qualifiers. Now, more lessons for baby cricket cranes there, and Watendwa Pasuwa trade world ahead of Mbarara rally there. And, of course, damage limitation day for hockey sides. Now, of course, also, Ghana coach, I will not resign, but Rwandan woman referee creates African Cup of Nation history.
Very interesting there, still in the world of sports and the national, that is the African National Cup. Here we look at Salim is historical, that is the Nations Cup. And Fever Pitch, they give you more of that and how the table is standing today at Africa Cup of Nations, who is playing, who, what time, and of course we also look at who is leading and the entire games played so far. The New Vision gives you more of that. But
now, of course, yeah, Robert, we will remind our viewers out there that today, again, we will come back at it, of course, to do fulfill on our promise that we will be bringing you AFCON live on your screens in the comfort of your homes, your sofas, your cars, your dinings, your beds, wherever.
Your phone.
Well, your phone, as Robert has said. And clearly, wherever you'll be able to catch all games live on UBC, and of course with our sister channels, that is Star TV, Magic 1, and of course U24, but also on our 11 radios. Those include Magic, that is Magic 100, Star TV, and UBC Red, UBC West, Butebo, just to mention but a few. But the games to look out for, that is at 7 p.m. we'll be having Ivory Coast versus Algeria. And of course at 7 again Sierra Leone versus Equatorial Guinea, and at 10 p.m. Gambia versus Tunisia, 10 again Mali versus Mauritania. Sorry. Definitely we'll be having our experts in studio to give you on-point lit analysis, of course, and the likes of Ruben, the likes of John Barnes, the likes of Fifi, the likes of Rwandaga, and of course Sentamu, John Barnes, there's Thomas, the likes of Eddie Muwesi. On our various TVs, you have nice relevant commentary, and of course that works in favor for some of you who are Kapapula fans. But apart from that, we also want to take a look briefly at the Daily Nation, just the headlines there, what's happening in Kenya ahead of their elections, and thereafter we'll be looking at what's in the papers, what's on the roads with Philo. But anyway, let's look at the headlines there. Activists urge Supreme Court judge to uphold the decision by the lower court that nullifies the process, that is a spirited fight against BBI. Now also the big headline, DP's big test in mountains amid Azimio scare. Now OKA factor in Raila's and Ruto run off. Of course, also much more again of the stories that dominate the paper are definitely about the forthcoming elections. What will be made out of these ones? Quite a stance there between Raila basically and of course the man, the DP Ruto. But far from that, let's hit the roads and with Philo.
Before we look at some of the traffic updates, I'll just take you through some of your responses regarding the poll question this morning, which was how can government work with the business community to moderate the tax burden ahead of the reopening of the full economy. And coming in from you, Derek from Makinye Luwafu, you're saying, good morning, let the government stick more on the system of pay as you earn. It's such a fair method where people feel content and not cheated, and let it even levy less on luxury products than the essential ones. Well, thank you so much, Derek. Now looking at the situation on the roads, well, today is a Thursday, and Very many of us actually have a tendency, or we believe that towards the weekend the traffic is less on the road until the actual weekend when it becomes heavy. But I really want to disagree with you, because looking at what is happening this morning, well, seems traffic is building up in several parts of the city centers. So I think it would be very crucial for you to actually know the situation and also try to decide which route you're going to use to access the city center, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you cannot actually maneuver out of the traffic and you won't be able to to get to your workplace in time. Now, if you are intending to access the city center and you are currently stationed at Yusuf Lule Road, I want to show you, or I want to tell you that it's actually very clear. Where you see these green lines actually tells you that it is shifting, so you can actually feel free to use this route. And while you are going beyond that, you could actually access the Ginger Road using Yusuf Lule Road. But also it's very important for you to note that where you see the orange lines clearly shows you the traffic is slowly but starting to build up. But you could detour from Yusuf Lule Road and instead use the Nile Avenue. Nile Avenue, it's green, as you can see, so that means it's very safe for you, and you will continue on that route, which will eventually get you onto Speak Road. And it's also very clear you can use that road still, that will connect you to the main road, which is Kampala Road, that is after Ginger Road. However, if you also not okay with using that route, there are very many alternative routes that you could decide to take on, and you find yourself at the city center. When you continue from Speak Road, actually you could also decide to use the square where you see the green light, which will still also, rather the green line, which will still continue to connect you to Nile Avenue and still get to Speak Road, and also still find yourself on Ginger Road. And if you're using Nakasero Road, well, where you see the green lights, the traffic is actually very okay, so it's manageable. Okay, you can find your way around it and still connect you to Speak Road, and you could decide to get into Nile Avenue and also Shimoni Road, which will still get you to the square. Now, getting to the square, you see the orange lines, which clearly show you that there are very many people trying to access town, and they have already started building here to get into town. So the traffic here is starting to build. So you may want to be a little bit more time conscious, or you may actually want to decide to use another route to be able to access the city center without having to go through the hassle of the building traffic. And that is the upper side of town. And still getting to the lower side of Kampala and Ginger Road, you could actually decide to use Access Road, which will still get you onto Station Road, which is also manageable. The traffic is actually shifting, so you have nothing to worry about. And you should note that from the Station Road, it will also connect you to Ginger Road, and you find yourself joining Ginger, or Kampala, actually better yet Kampala Road. So there are very many alternatives you don't really have to worry about. But I'll tell you for sure, it seems there are very many people who are trying to access the city center. I don't know why. Maybe they're trying to prepare for their reopening, try to get their businesses up and standing. So you don't want to take a risk. You don't want to assume that there are few people, or there are few people who will be deciding to come to town. That is a chance you don't really want to take. So you may want to leave your home right now, or you may decide to leave slightly later if you don't have really a time, if you're not time bound, especially when it comes to accessing your business. So the traffic is there, and I think there will be more people in town later on in the day, depending on what I am seeing right now. So yes, I don't want you to believe that there are few people in town. Well, that's it from our traffic updates, but I want to leave you with Mollen, who really, I have actually a question for you, Mollen. Considering the weather that has been happening, we've seen it's been pretty cold for the last couple of days. We've been seeing some showers here and there, and I'm seeing farmers getting excited. I'm also seeing us being warned not to get too excited. And also, from what I know, yesterday there was an official statement that came out. I don't know, do we get excited? Do we not get excited? What would you do you have any good news for us regarding this?
I'll tell you one thing, and our viewers out there, well, we can't get excited. Some of these things are short-lived.
That's really
so we've known
unfortunate.
January to be a dry season, and that has not changed, even when we're talking about climate change. Yes.
Really?
We have only had variations in our seasons,
yes,
but the climate change has not come with changing our seasons. So our seasons are still going to be stipulated within that time period. So if you see some of these rains coming up in a dry season, it's not, it doesn't mean that, okay, go ahead and, you know, plant. No, it means that there are just a few changes within the weather systems, but not enough to sustain most of the activities that could be done in rainy seasons. Yeah.
We really need to hold our horses and put our excitement.
Yes.
Well, that's it from the traffic updates. I will now officially hand you over to Mollen, who will be giving you some weather and information also concerning the climate, and will definitely be also giving you the weather forecast for today. Have a very good morning. I am Philomena Masco.
Well, thank you very much, Philip, for that. And on that note, I'll also take it off from the statement that did come out yesterday, that is from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority, telling us about the current rains and also what we should expect, whether we should be excited like we were mentioning earlier, or we should just hold our horses. But guess what? This statement also shows that the overview of the current rains, you have to remember that the period of December, January and February is generally characterized by sunny, dry and hazy conditions, and I guess that's what we actually started off with. That is for the period of also January, we've been seeing mostly dry conditions. However, the authority is also saying that these occasional rains that normally occur in this season are also off-season rains. So that means that we are having some of those. We did start it off right from the 14th of January after a long period of mostly dry conditions that we were actually complaining about. But also the current rains, they explain what has been, you know, how it has been attributed to, and they're attributing that to the strengthening of the southern pressure systems. Those are rain-bearing systems, some of the systems that usually bring us most of these rains now being having shifted the rain belt over the country, and consequently leading to the observed rainfall events over most parts of the country. However, also the statement shows the further outlook to be that the current rainfall is expected to gradually reduce over most parts of the country in about 1 week, and later on dry conditions are expected to resume until the end of February. So this is clearly indicating that it is not something that will last long, and most of these changes with pressure systems, soon as they are done, even the rains will be done. So the advisory, especially to the farming community that is coming in from UNIMA, shows that the farming community can take advantage of the current rains to just carry out land preparations in anticipation for our first major rainy season, and that is March to May rainy season. Now, UNIMA will continue monitoring most of these systems and provide further guidance regarding the March to May season in February 2022. So I'll tell you what, until we come to March and go on with our first major rainy season, this is not a season for you to start planting. But what you can do is prepare your farms. That means that you take advantage of the fact that now with the rains coming in, the land is quite softer and you can do the plowing, you can do all the preparations, but also you have to hold on to those rains which are expected to come by March. But also we know that at least the Met Authority will be giving us updates, and we can trust the weatherman to get on that. But well, away from what we have across the country in terms of our current situation, we also want to follow up on the current situation within Tonga. Now that is also making headlines. So far we have news that there has been one of the homes across the island was really destroyed, and it's no more. If you look at what is coming in from Tonga, and Rota did report that earlier today, showing that all homes on one of Tonga's islands were destroyed. Now, this home that we're talking about particularly houses 50, has been, you know, accommodating 50 people within the area, and so far what we have is that most of these were taken down by the tsunami that did come up after the volcanic eruption over Tonga. Now Tonga is comprised of many islands, but most of those have had destruction over the course of the days since Saturday, and we didn't have communication coming through for the first days, that is Saturday into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. But now we did see yesterday that the New Zealand Defense Department did actually go over to assess the damage before it was impossible to go through because of the volcanic ash over there. But now at least reports that are coming through from Tonga indicating that some of the news is coming through. One of the villages has been destroyed, and that houses there has been homes homes to 50 people. And so far we can't confirm that there is anyone alive there on one of those islands. However, most of the news is still coming through as the military continues to assess the damage over the island. Now it seems like even the pressure waves over the area are still ongoing. That means that there could be more destruction in terms of the islands that are also close to where the tsunami actually hit most. So we'll be awaiting more news coming in from the Defense Department, and of course now some of the international organizations that have also started to come in after saying that some of the volcanic ash is going away. So until then we can't confirm how many more islands have been destroyed over Tonga, but it is really sad news. And also we did have scientists report the fact that most of these natural disasters have also been fueled by the fact that we do have climate changes. The fact that even our adaptation towards some of nature's disasters is getting low. Now if you look at issues like sea level rise that we always talk about, we look at wildfires, flooding. Now, with such an island, you look at the issue of sea level rise. Already, the levels of waters towards the islands are covering in to cover the homes. So that means that a tsunami of that extent it will be easy for the waters to move over to the island. The fact that it's already raised. So even when you look at climate change impacts over that area, it is one of the things that could have fueled the situation over Tonga. But even right now, we do have more events happening across the world in terms of climate change extremes. Just this morning, we got news about the wildfires in central Texas, and this is already covering most of the hectares across Texas. And we also have to remember that the US has been worst hit when it comes to wildfires for the statistics of 2021, and they're just starting 2022 on the same note of wildfires. So when we are talking about these extreme events that are happening across the world, it's just something that keeps going up and going up. And I was looking at the fact that you look at who is contributing to actually this fuel that is, exaggerating extreme weather events. We have talked about greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, the rise in temperatures. We just held climate talks on how we can curb this, but even before the action, even as we delay the action, the events will not stop. So we're going to see more and more of these events happening across the world. And if you look at the statistics of even how we stand right now in terms of the carbon dioxide levels that we so far have, and NASA did assess most of these during the course of December to January, and I can tell you it's not looking good. And in terms of what we have right now, you look at the carbon dioxide levels that did come up just for January, and this is also coming from NOAA that has assessed our levels up to January 17th, and that's the other day, and this just came out this morning indicating how far we've gone in terms of carbon dioxide levels. Now, December, we were at least within 416 parts per million. That is the measurement within carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. Now, what NOAA has done is look at the numbers that where you see those dots making lines, those are the carbon dioxide levels that we are having. Now, all that is actually above 400. Now, what that number means is that we have more of these gases into the atmosphere. That means more trapping of heat. That means more extreme weather events that we could be looking at. We could be looking at more heat waves. We did have one just last week across Australia where we did see temperatures rising to higher levels and affecting the health across that area. We're talking about most of these natural events that have been fueled by climate extremes. We're talking about the wildfires, and this is something that is really being considered as a terrible time. And if you look at some of these events that are happening, they're just breaking records. For example, even the volcanic eruption that we're talking about over Tonga, it is now believed to be one of the biggest eruptions that we've had ever since 1991. So you can see the extent of how much we are actually disrupting our course of nature. So until we do more on the climate action, we're still going to be talking about the same stories. But there is hope. There is hope because we have a window to make sure that we curb some of these fossil fuels. We curb some of these, practices that we have. Go renewable, reduce this kind of temperatures that we have, and hope for a better future. We only have one planet. There is no planet B, so that means we have to
make sure we protect planet A. But well, we also want to come back home and talk about the weather that we are experiencing right now as we speak across the country. But I'll tell you one thing, it's not a repeat of yesterday. Well, we're starting off with quite some cold weather. However, we don't have rains across most places. Most of the skies are quite open in grey colors. There where you see the grey colors, that is where we have mostly sunny conditions across, you can see eastern Uganda, the southern part of eastern Uganda, also across parts of southwestern. We are starting off with quite some pretty sunshine, but we also have a few clouds that are developing in where you see the white colors like across Mbara and also Kabale Highlands, starting off with some cloudy conditions. We have a rainy system, but that is across Lake Albert. Now that might be bringing us those cloudy conditions across midwestern Uganda, and probably later in the day we might also be looking at rains across this area. But take a look at the central part of northern Uganda and Karamoja. We do have that cloud that is moving in, some of the rainy systems that are starting to develop. Now that could only mean that we might be looking at rainy conditions even for parts of central northern Uganda for this morning. Also, looking at one of those systems that are developing across Lake Victoria. Now, it is just a small system for now, in small red and orange, but looks like that will be growing and could bring us some rains, especially for those areas close to Lake Victoria. Now, that takes in parts of Kampala, Wakiso. You take a look at parts of Entebbe as well. As we look at this system here, that could be having a little bit of rains, but not as much as the ones we've been dealing with for the last couple of days. That's quite a relief, but also later in the afternoon we could see more of those developing. However, there is really a reduction when it comes to rainy conditions for today, and we could be seeing more reduction as we head into Friday and the entire weekend. So at least that is good news. We'll go ahead and take a look at our forecast that we have for this morning, and that is also coming in from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority, looking at which places are expecting what type of weather. Now we look at the eastern part of Lake Victoria. That is where we have Tororo, Busia, Iganga and Jinja. We're forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine, starting off with a pleasant 26. Well, Mount Elgon Highlands, we are forecasting those isolated rains, also starting off with a cool morning at 25 degrees centigrade, and that system is likely to clear off as we head into the afternoon. Eastern Uganda, where there is already Kata, Kuyamuria and Kumi, we are forecasting isolated rains as well. Those will be just over a few places. We'll likely start it off with a 25, quite a cool morning, but also later in the afternoon that area is likely to have mostly sunny intervals. Now the eastern part of Central, where we have Luweero, Wobulenzi, Bururi and Nakaseke, we're starting off with a forecast of isolated showers starting off at 26, and also that system is likely to clear into the afternoon, where we'll be looking at a mix of clouds and sunshine. Now also for the western part of Lake Victoria, we have Masaka, Kalisi, Zorakai and Zimbabwe. We are forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine, starting off with a cool 25. Look at southwestern Uganda, where we have Mbarara, Ibanda, Bushenyi, Rubirizi. We're forecasting isolated rains. Those will also be over a few areas, starting off with a cool 23 degrees centigrade, and those rains are likely to continue into the afternoon, so be aware of that. Now central northern Uganda, we already have those clouds moving in, and that will be bringing us rains over that area, starting off with a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade, but we'll be getting warmer by evening. Now the central parts of Lake Victoria, we'll have Kampala, Entebbe, Wakiso and Mokono. We're forecasting those rains again, like I mentioned earlier. Those will be mostly for the areas close to the lake, starting off with a cool 24 degrees centigrade, and we might also have some of those rains sticking around even into the afternoon. Well, most of that is actually looking at a clear day, and I would say a pleasant start of across much of the country, looking at that much needed sunshine for the morning across several places. But I will be leaving you at that. We do have a Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up, and later Ruben will be here to take us through sports. We're still talking about AFCON. You can't afford to miss the highlights coming through, and for the games that we are looking at today, I know as we head towards the quarterfinals, this is really one of the stations you want to keep a watch on. You can't afford to miss watching UBC. Well, I'll leave you at that. My name is Mollen, Kenyena, and have a wonderful morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Start the year off with my Airtel 4G smartphone. You get to enjoy free 1 GB data valid for a month and 100% bonus data every month for 3 months at only 250,000 Uganda shillings. This includes free data spread over 3 months worth 86,500 Uganda shillings, making the effective price of the 4G phone 163,500 Uganda shillings only. Visit the nearest Airtel shop and get one today. Airtel, the smartphone network.
National Resistance Movement Liberation Day in Uganda is celebrated on the 26th of January each year. The public holiday commemorates the date in 1986 when the